is where we get to the end of time math that displays how exactly the end of this cycle and how everything works as far as the left and the right hand choices or decisions that we make in the flesh, and how that energy is being siphoned into a vortex of left hand antics to create a lower vibratory frequency that's going to trigger the reaping. So as I said before, this is the final formula brought on by the two Christ. There are two energies divided by the man-child, bringing about this last final mathematics, which is 3.11. 7 sixes equals 4 if you break down the math, and 4 plus 7, which is 47, or the 47th trump, would be 11. Okay, so this is 3.11, and 3.11 is very crucial and key in your understanding of breaking the Bible grimoire Codex, and I will explain that in a bit on how those two numbers of this equation is the final end of time, but it is also a secret cipher to unlock the Bible grimoire from beginning to end. We will get into that on how 3.11 or 11.3 is the secret mathematics. The rod of iron that shuts down the ionosphere through the reset. The number 3 and 2 is a representation of we are marching to Zion, which is March, the third month. 2 is TWO, which represents the number 2, and Zion is the Z ion, which Z is the 26th letter, which breaks down into iron because Fe 26 is iron, and ion is the ionosphere of Earth's sphere. So marching to Zion is the 3-2, or the crossing of the Jordan 23, number 5, into the 5th dimension, which is the additional space within the Ankh. Okay, not the cross. We're talking about leaving the 3rd dimensional plane behind and crossing over into the 5th dimension, which can only be brought about through the veil of Isis. And the veil of Isis is a representation of the 3 stairs. It's her throne. It's the number 3. It is the crossing or the stairs between life and death. In order for you to be born into a physical body, you need to go through a womb space. So this is what the veil of Isis and the throne of Isis is representing with 3 stairs. It is the process of death and rebirth. So when you talk about the number 3, this is the throne of Isis, okay? And this is the Christ number, or the Trinity number, that is the holy number in order for us to get this final equation. The throne of Isis is the veil, and remember, Halloween is a representation of when the veil is most thin, okay? And the veil being thin, in Halloween being a holiday centered around evil and veil are masked words. The word evil is taking the V and putting it in second place. The V is a representation of the woman or her womb space or her womanly parts. Okay, and the V being put in second place is the lowering of the status of the divine feminine, or the veil of Isis, which is a representation of the womb space. Putting her second is evil, and the devil is a representation of the D, evil. Okay, and the D is the 4th letter representing the 13th bloodline again. Evil or the devil, you're talking about putting the veil of Isis or the V in second place in favor of the E, which is the pentagram, okay, because E is the 5th letter. The pentagram is a representation of a 5-pointed star. It is an energy that pins something, or a protection, or a binding, okay? When you talk about a pentagram, if you break down the word pentagram, you have penta, which is the 5, and then you have gram, which is the G ram. The G is the 7th letter, which again represents the scythe energy, or the reaping, or the grim reaper. So when you talk about the G that is within a square and compass, you're talking about the letter that equals the number 7, and you're talking about ram in the bush. Okay, bush is a representation of a woman's parts. Okay, it is the V between the legs. The ram in the bush is the woman. Okay, when you're talking about Abraham and the sacrifice, the veil of Isis is replaced by evil, or this is the slice of the devil's pie. pi being pi, which is 3.14. If you accept the devil's pi, what you're accepting is the irrational number, or just the regular existence of 22 divided by 7, versus you accepting the fullness of gaining Christ consciousness and ascension and becoming a 3, okay, within the equation, so that you can connect with your twin soul and you become a higher ascended master or being. When you accept the devil's pi, you're accepting pi as your existence. That is what it means to sell your soul. You forfeit Christ consciousness by taking a slice of the devil's pie. Okay, so you can understand that symbology, as well as his name being Michael Eugene Archer, and me talking about the 7 Olympian spheres that govern the 196 squares of light. Okay, Michael is the first archangel of the 7 Olympian spirits that governs the sun, that governs Leo, governs the serpent Ophiuchus, the 13th hidden zodiac symbol, which symbol represents the chalice, and the snake is called the serpent bearer, which is a representation of sexual intercourse between a male and a female, or the root chakra, the lower chakra. We're talking about Shakti Kundalini energy. I am taking the 6s that are laid out here in the form of 7 because these 7 6s represent your free will. The number 7 is an odd number, but it's odd because you have 3 on one side and 3 on the other, which is a representation of the choices you make to go left or right. Okay, it's also a representation of the divine feminine and the divine masculine, and it's a representation of all of the choices that we have within the earth realm and how that numerically plays out, because again, everything on a quantum level is frequency and light, numbers and light angles, binary code, which maps out in this way. So you have a vortex of 6s in the middle, which represents all of the choices we are making on either the left or the right hand. This is what your paths are when you talk about the left hand path or the right hand path, and what those represent and how they play out in mass media and within the matrix of math or information that comes across your screen, and why things are positioned in a certain way so that they can bring about a certain change in timeline or energy. Okay, and I'm going to show you here how this all triggers the side energy automatically. The more you weigh down one side, you will consider this 6 in the middle to be your solar power. You can also consider this 6 to be Ma'at, which is the feminine principle. You can consider that to be the number for yin, which is mother. Okay, and the right hand path is for the masculine, or is for the positive, and the left hand path is for the negative or negative frequencies. Right, it's the balance between your higher self and your lower self. Okay, you divide the body in half and you go about doing the mathematics in that way. If you look at this 6 as your solar power, or is basically the place where you get your energy, let's say bad things are happening or good things are happening, you as a solar being or a photon light being receive your power from the sun. We are like batteries that need recharging, and we are actively using the power of the sun in order for us to exist within this realm. So when you think about this system numerically as well as on a photon light level, think about the sun powering your energy and refueling you as energy is being taken away. This is the reason why I am teaching that a reset is coming, and no matter what happens, the sun itself is dying out, and it's going to come to a point where we have to have a full reset in terms of bringing a new photon light being into the realm, which is the divine masculine yang and 9 energy of the man child and his rod of iron, to push the energy of the soul or the sun to spark in the realm, because there's no room for him. So his photon light energy pushes it and causes a spark, which is already happening. And this is going to give us a new spark or a new sun and usher in the new world, which will be the end of the time cycle, not the end of the world, the end of time. So this solar power powers you on either side, right? And you have a group of individuals who have committed themselves to the left-hand path. This is the 9/11, or the L basically being a 90-degree angle or a building laid flat. Okay, this is your 9/11 code, and I will plug in a diagram here so you can understand how that pentagram or that pinta energy kind of ties into this, so you can go in for deeper study. But when you talk about the left-hand path, this is all of the things that are done in news, media, movies, everything that is put before your face as a numerical value through names and codes and numbers, so that it can alter the timeline of your existence. So what you're seeing right now in this moment is a vortex of negative or lower frequency on the left-hand path against the divine feminine archetype. This is taking us into a very tilted scale, and it's kind of just going like this. Okay, so think about it like more energy is being placed on this side than can be taken from this side. This side is trying to build itself up while being siphoned by this side. So it's kind of like a tipping the scales moment that we're having here.